If mushroom bags work, we're going to dive into that conversation with Uncle Mice of Michigan. So won't you join us on this path as we take a journey? Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Organically Blunt. Y'all know who I am, but you don't know who Tim is. Tim, Uncle Mike. I probably don't pronounce it correctly because I am a little tongue-tied. But other than that, we're going to discuss mushrooms this evening and if CO2 mushroom bags work. So welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Definitely. So, I want to dive right off the bat, and kind of explain what exactly a mushroom bag is and what it consists of. And the second part of it, if you don't mind diving into it, is basically what is the job it is performing for when it comes to cannabis.
Yeah, no problem. So first off, you have your CO2 bags. Most of them are going to have a little filter patch on the front here. They'll be in a couple of different sizes depending on, what actual space you're going to be trying to utilize these in. Like this one right here is a 7-pounder. The other ones that we make are 4-pounders. And what those typically consist of is it is a pre-inoculated substrate mix that we do in-house in a sterile environment. It is just a little bit of grain from a very particulate or isolation of black pearl kings that we utilize here. They are a lot more vigorous producers when it comes down to CO2 in your environment, but they don't actually make a fruiting body like a lot of these other bags do. Like over the years, I've bought mushroom bags to use in my garden personally, and you'll always end up getting something that grows through the filter patch, and hey, cool, now we have some oysters or whatever. These don't tend to do that unless your room suddenly gets a shock of 45 degrees, which God help us if our grow rooms ever get that cold. Those ladies are in trouble at that point. But basically, what these bags are here to do is provide supplemented CO2 into your room. Depending on your airflow situation, the actual size of the room that you're growing in, how many lights, how many plants, that's all going to determine how many bags you're actually going to use in your room. So let's say I have just a small tent, like a 4x4 tent, just basic. I'm just getting started with this. I don't want to invest anything else yet. A 4-pound CO2 bag in a 4x4 tent, let's say you have 4 plants in 5-gallon pots. You should be seeing roughly about 800 to 1,000 parts per million in there, just off of like the 4-pound CO2 bags. And you'll be seeing roughly about 1,000 to 1,300 parts per million of CO2 running a 7-pound bag in that room. Now, that's saying that is a closed loop system. You're not pulling air in, pulling air out, because if you're, doing that air exchange, you're going to be losing a lot of it coming out. Okay. So like what we tell people to do is, make sure you have plenty of like floor fans, stuff like that in there, something that's going to shoot that CO2 back up towards the canopy. That's where you're going to get your best results out of it. Like I tend to tell people, especially with the LEDs, hang them right above your LEDs. There's enough wind movement in most people's room that you're going to be blowing that CO2 as it falls directly across that canopy, and you're going to get more saturation into that canopy. Like CO2 realistically is responsible for, I'd say, almost 20 to 30% yield in most grow situations. That's basically just airborne steroids to them. You're, helping them perform photosynthesis. It's in exchange, they're giving you fresh air to breathe and, giving you bigger nugs and happier plants and healthier fruits, But as you scale up, like if I wanted to do 4 lights and, had a closed environment, I have an AC running and everything like that, you're looking at like a 7 pound bag per light to hit the numbers you're looking for. Realistically, with veg, we tell people a 4 pounder is more than enough per light. That's going to keep you at an adequate level without allowing your plants to go haywire on you. Because if you go too high in veg, they're going to stretch out a lot more. That internodal spacing is just going to be way different than somebody who's at like the 800 to 1,000 mark when you're running 1,500 parts per million.
Okay, definitely. I sorry to cut you off. I do have another question for you, and that it might be a dumb question, but we get questions from people of all different levels on here. That some people email them in, and some people message them. And one of the questions we did get that I wanted to ask you is this, obviously it's CO2 and you're not supposed to breathe it directly. Is this something that if you're working with your plants and you have them in there, is it safe enough to be in there with them?
Oh, 100%. So typically, you don't reach a known danger zone until you're in about the 2,000 parts per million or higher.
Okay.
Um, Realistically, just speaking in smaller terms, if I was in like a 10 by 10 room and I had 8 people standing in there and we're all talking, laughing, having a good time, that room is going to be up to about that same level of CO2
Okay.
production. You're going to start feeling that lightheaded euphoria feel from, you should not be getting to that level unless you were talking like hundreds of bags in a room. And
Okay.
we run an actual facility here. We have tons of these bags pre-started sitting on a shelf in a room. The CO2 in there is still not getting over 2,000 parts per million, but we're also
Wow.
evacuating that room at 1,500 just to make sure that we're not dealing with anything like that. You know, your
Definitely.
plants, your plants are going to utilize far more of that CO2 than you'll ever be in contact with. Like mushroom bags are the safest way to do CO2 in your room. You're not lugging tanks into the house. You don't have a propane or natural gas burner. You're not adding heat to the room. You're not spending 20, 30 minutes cleaning up that tank because you don't know where the hydro stored. This guy returned it last and he's got mites and aphids and this and that. You're
Uh,
not dealing with any of that. It's you have a plastic bag protecting it, and realistically, if anything was wrong with these bags, you're going to notice it while you're at the store purchasing them, well before you ever get it home. You know, and like if you do make it all the way home with it, we would take care of you 100% on that. Like that's any of our products whatsoever. They are full lifetime warranties until you know, prove to us that you've done something to actually, cause the contamination. We just assume it's on our end. We just take all the blame for it and just want everybody to have the best, most viable product in the market. So,
that is awesome. I'm totally new to this, and I did a little bit of research, and I've seen that a lot of people are kind of on both sides of the fence with them, and you know, I I personally haven't tried them. But the closest thing I've ever done to CO2 was the whole. I made a I don't know. It was with 2 liter bottles. It's on our channel. It used to be a very popular video on our channel, and I did like fish tank tubing and filters where the CO2 could exit the bottles, but nothing could go back into them, and I,
so that was the
it,
yeast method, right?
yep, the yeast method.
So like
Eh,
that's a great way for starter people that are doing smaller gardens. There is some give and take with that though too, because you are going to get some of those particulates coming through in the end, which they can basically allow a building block for things like bud rot and stuff like that. 'Cause it's not exactly a strong source that you're fighting against.
Sure, definitely. So, with these, you know, I seen you made the 7 pound. Is that as big as you go typically, or for bigger commercial operations, does it get bigger?
So realistically, a 7 pounder is about as big as you want to go per light. If you were doing a commercial operation, I would say anything over 8 lights, I would start pushing someone towards the tank method or towards the burner method. Because in the long run, they will save money at that size. You're if you had a room, let's say that has, we'll just make it an easy one. Let's say it has 10 lights, 4 plants per light. You're talking 40 plants in this room. Those plants are going to have a much more strict CO2 diet than what somebody who's running a little 2 light tent like myself is doing. A 2 light tent, your plants aren't going to be uptaking nearly as much CO2. You don't have nearly as much foliage. You're not doing X, Y, and Z with it. When you're at that 10 light and above commercial status, you've got things that are going to be moving around. You've got, air movement that's going to be getting sucked in, sucked out. There's so many variables as you get to that larger scale that it almost makes it just not cost effective anymore. Like you buy a CO2 bag from us, you're going to get roughly 3 to 5 months of usage out of that mushroom bag. So you're talking
Wow.
anywhere from 1 to 2 crops. Um, and that varies. Depending on your environment is going to depend on how much CO2 the bags actually produce and, what they're going to be doing throughout that time. Um, like if your room's too hot, you don't have an AC in there, your room's getting up to 90 degrees, those bags are going to be bumping. They're going to be, producing a lot more CO2 than somebody who's got a room that's sitting at 60 degrees because they, can't keep up with the heat in the winter or whatever. All these different variables come into play when you're working with these bags. But like the average grower, I would say anybody who's running 1 to 4 lights, CO2 bags are just the way to go. You're not lugging tanks around. You're not playing that game with burners. Who wants to put a burner in a tent?
Definitely, yeah. That don't even sound safe to me. But I am definitely intrigued by these bags. Just like somebody in our audience here, they asked, should they have this in their garden? I definitely want to try one firsthand and see the results difference compared to my previous grows, because I honestly don't even know. I just, from what I've heard, from a lot of the older school growers that I know and met, these guys were lugging the old CO2 tanks in and going down to the welding store here in town and getting the regulators for like a pop machine CO2 and stuff like that. And, you know, it, they're like, the plants are healthier, they grow faster, they're more vigorous, their color is better. And I personally want to experience that firsthand to see if it's going to benefit my grow too, just like these guys out here in the audience. A lot of these folks haven't tried it, so what is, I guess the next question would be, what is the price point on something like this? As far as cost effective.
So you're talking anywhere from $25 to like $35 roughly for what these
Wow.
bags are costing for you to pick up from any hydro store that carries us or on our website even. Um, Realistically, you're talking 2 grows of CO2 production for, let's call it $45 at your high end with the shipping and handling, all that fun stuff if you don't
Sure.
pick it up from one of your local stores. But I mean, at that point, you're going to go through a 20-pound CO2 tank roughly once a week in a room that just has 2 lights in it. But I can put 2 CO2 bags, 7 pounders in that room for roughly $90 on the high end, and that's 2 runs. If you're on a 10-week cycle like I am, all right, so I'm out $25 for 10 weeks right there. I'm at a
Right.
third of the cost to produce the CO2 that I need to enrich my environment to do the same thing, to keep them happy, keep them healthy, keep them doing what they need to do. Like CO2 is realistically just as important as having your lights, having, the proper humidity, having the proper temperature. All those things come into the equation for what you're trying to do to maximize your yield. And, with the price points that are out around town now, if you're not maximizing your yield to at least, get you through from A to B, so that you can get through to your next crop, or, to make your money to afford the next crop, you're kind of doomed. So, like, the price point is definitely there to help, even the smallest of grows, and help out anybody, even if they're, kind of financially struggling with it. Getting just one bag in there is still going to, increase your yield about 10 to 15%, per light. That's
That's
huge
that.
for most people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for people that are home growers, I could see it definitely being beneficial because, and these guys out here in the chat, they're saying, some of them tried some and they didn't last that long for them, and like Stoned in 604 said here, for CO2 to be beneficial, you got to be running on all cylinders in a sealed environment. Otherwise, you're exhausting your money. And you kind of pointed on that as well, and I kind of can see that now. You want to hold that in that environment, and if you have any type of leaks, or if you're pulling your air exchange out, you're basically are throwing your money away. And I could see that. I don't know if it would honestly be beneficial in my grow, because I use an active intake and an active exhaust. But for somebody in a sealed environment, it probably would work a lot more beneficial.
So, in my experience with how I've run these bags and how I've run my filtration and my tents and everything, because I do the loop, I have fresh air coming in that's being filtered through a
Sure.
can 150 through a 10-inch max fan into that tent. And then, coming out of there is an 8-inch max fan with a 8-inch can light. But if you have your filters up high, you got to remember CO2 is heavier than air. It's going to fall down across your canopy. And if you have the proper air ventilation in there, just oscillating fans, floor fans, stuff like that, you're still going to get a better result having it with all of that exchange than you are without having it.
Okay.
Are you going to see 20 to 30% yield increase like some of these guys where it's properly closed, they have the AC, they've built the perfect environment so no air has to be exchanged because they make their fresh air? That's, your best result all day. But even exchanging out, you'll still get, I'd say a 10 to 15% yield increase. Like, I run two lights that I basically have my favorite 5 strains in. I do the same run every time. It's 2 of this, 2 of that, 2 of this, and consistently across the board. I run 2 Gavita 1700s, the LED series. I run them at 100% the whole way through bloom. On average, I'm putting down anywhere between 2.5 to 3 pounds of light off of it.
Wow.
I take away those CO2 bags because I've had to do it for, our R&D here. Of here's the side by sides, same tents. I have two of them going. One's doing absolutely perfect. The other one, you can just tell it's doing okay, but it's just chugging along. Like, bro, we're just kind of missing something here. You
Okay.
know, like that
Yeah.
CO2 being there is what's allowing your plant to, process all of these different nutrients that you're giving to it.
Yeah, it's definitely very intriguing. I mean, I'm kind of one of them growers, to be honest with everybody. I got that shiny object syndrome, where
Okay.
like something new, something different, I got to try it. Like the latest
Yep.
thing, and I'm not saying this is new. I know this has
Oh,
been around, but
oh yeah.
it's new to some of us out there. And if you guys haven't tried it, I mean, honestly, you're not going to know if it's going to work until you try it firsthand. I mean, if you see the results, you know it works for you and your environment. If you're not seeing what you're looking for, well, you took the plunge and you can say you at least tried it. So
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with it.
yeah. But like I said, it is, you're still going to get some results even in a non-closed environment. It's not going to be that top tier that you're looking for, but if you're doing everything else appropriately, you're going to notice the results.
Definitely. That's the thing. You just got to get your system dialed in, and then, yeah, that's like putting the cherry on top of the sundae. I mean, you got it all made, and you want that cherry just to top it off. Well, that's what CO2 basically seems like to me. So, you know, so I want to dive into a little bit of just you as a grower and as a person and your journey with cannabis. And that being said, you said you grow basically the same five strains each time. Would you mind letting the audience know what them favorites of yours are?
Oh yeah. So I've been growing a strain from Emerald Triangle for God close to 10 years now, called Blueberry Headband. One of my all-time favorites. You could club a seal to death with it. The Doug's literally 18 rounds, no problem on the golf course with just beautiful. That is my number one.
Okay.
Next up, I've got I did a pheno hunt a couple years ago for Jungle Boys. It was creamsicle cross with Zittles cake. Another huge heavy yielder, super creamy, super citrusy on the exhale. Um, Probably the second most potent strain that I have. Um, like I'm not huge on like strains that like you take two puffs and you fall over. Like I want something that I can kind of enjoy like a
Right.
cigar and smoke on it all day or pass it around with the friends and still be able to party a little bit after. But um, outside of that, I've got strawberry OG cookies that I really like. It's super
Ooh,
fruity. When you smoke it in a room, it doesn't even smell like weed. It smells like somebody took a Bath and Body Works strawberry spritzer and just sprayed it around. Uh,
okay.
it's different, man. Like it's wicked wild. Uh, I've got a old school Chem Dog cross that we did with wedding cake. We had seen that I think it was Greenhouse Seeds had done a one that they called Chemical Bride. It was Chem Dog cross with wedding cake, and we were like, we already have both of these. Let's just try it ourselves. And we found a pretty nice, beautiful cross out of that. Not the world's largest yielder, but some of the best smoke that there is. And the final one I got is my Elmer's number 4, which is Gorilla Glue cross with White Runts.
Okay.
That was a more recent pheno hunt. She dethroned a very nice plant that I had been running for about 3.5 years. And yeah,
Wow.
I've been doing this for God, going on 15 years now.
That's impressive. Definitely, that's a long time. I've only been doing it since '09, and I've learned a lot, and I've tried a few of those, and I've tried a few of the actual like strain cross characteristics that you labeled, but maybe not both of them together. And yeah, definitely. But Blueberry Headband, I used to get that on the regular before I started growing. My my plug was a caregiver, and he back in the day he only had three kinds you could pick from. You had Blueberry Headband, you had Strawberry Cough, and then sometimes he would bring either a Chem Dog or he would mix it up with a diesel or something like that once in a while. But most of the time it was either you got the blueberry or the strawberry. And I gotta say the blueberry was like the stronger of the two, but if you were looking for flavor, it was definitely the strawberry. And them are some of my favorites as well. And then wedding cake, that was my biggest plant I ever grew was a wedding cake from Barney's farm. I grew that 17 and a half foot. That thing was insane. Yes. You can see the pictures on our Instagram. I'm on a 17-foot ladder and it's towering over me. And Yeah, last year we had a couple big ones. This year they're not. I topped them, so they're getting a little bit more bushier, and it's been fun outdoors this year. I hope in the enter the sun grown competition. Hopefully, I have something good. We're dealing with a little bit of issues on our outdoor right now. A lot of Japanese beetles this year for some reason, and on top of that, I'm getting I've got a couple that I think that the frost might have got to them on one of the cold nights we had recently out of the blue, and I'm gonna have to cut a couple bud sites out, but we're gonna hit it with some bacillus tomorrow, and I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good. We're gonna keep up with our IPM, and I'm working with Country Roots, and they're gonna help me get it on par and up to schedule. I shot him some pictures this morning, and he's like, "Oh, that looks like a deficiency of some sort." And then I talked to another guy, a friend of mine, Potent Ponics, and he was like, I think it's sulfur deficiency. You should use some bacillus and maybe some labs. And I'm like, well, I don't have access to any of the labs right now, but I do bacillus. So we'll give it that and we'll go from there. But, I want to dive into the first time you tried cannabis. I ask all my guests this. Where'd you where'd you get it from and how was the experience for you?
Oh man, I haven't thought about this in a long time. So my first time ever smoking cannabis, I was still in high school. I was a bad kid. Um, Shame on me. But I ended up getting invited to go camping with a buddy of mine and his family, and he was, I guess, somewhat of a bad kid too. But we ended up sneaking off from everybody at the Sleeping Bear Dunes campground, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a little bit of tinfoil and I got some weed. Are you down to smoke with me, right?" Like, sure, old buddy, old pal. Like, I'll do this thing that I've clearly done before multiple times. Wink, wink. Never done it, of
uh,
course. I took the fattest rip off of this stupid little frickin' tinfoil pipe. Spent the next half hour coughing my butt off, walking around Sleeping Bear Dunes, just wobbling left and right. It was honestly the first time smoking was probably the most euphoric experience I ever had. Like you kind of like black out here and there and come to you're 5 steps ahead of everybody else and like, oh cool, there's a butterfly. You know, it was great. It was an eye opening experience, and I honestly contribute that to my overall mental health these days. Like back then, I mean, I was going through a decent amount of crap, just in life in general. And, I was basically looking for anything at that point that could just be like, you're not sad anymore, buddy.
right.
Like, hey,
Yep.
pick it up, do something. And honestly, I mean, by the time I graduated high school, I had completely weaned myself off of all the antidepressants, all the ADHD medications, all the pain pills, because I was really into extreme sports for a while there. I busted my butt doing motocross and, a few other fun things. I was really into wrestling when I was in high school, really into football, and doing all this stuff. But it, it takes a toll on you. And you think like when you're young, you're invincible. And it's like, I hit 18 and I felt like I had the body of a 40-year-old man who just got hit by a semi. And
Oh,
it's,
definitely.
yeah.
It's amazing, just speaking on, pain and you're listening to your body and stuff. We dove into that last night's episode. I had the Nugbud lady on here, and she was a lady who had 143 spinal taps, and she was addicted to opiates
Lord.
and fentanyl. And she'll be at Michigan Gyms and Genetics in October, and It's a really great episode. If you guys haven't caught it, make sure you hit that subscribe, that like button so you can get notified of these shows if you haven't already. But, you know, when I dive into this with her last night, she said the same thing. She got addicted to all that and she discovered cannabis, and people kept trying to get her to try it, and she tried it, and she weaned herself off all that. So to know that this plant can do that, not only for her type of situation, but for a situation of somebody that might be athletic or into extreme sports that deals with pain on the other side of the spectrum, and see that this plant can contribute to the relief of that as well, and not just extreme spinal pain. It just does so many different types of characteristics of pain and helps treat it is amazing. It really is.
Oh, it's 100% amazing. Like it's like just the anti-inflammatory effects just from like taking CBD gummies and stuff like that. You don't have to take something that contains THC to get the effects of it. You can still, utilize the CBD, the CBN, everything
Yep.
else that's a part of this wonderful plant, and it's going to help you. Now, I say the same thing for everything. Like there is always the exception to the rule. You're always going to have somebody that, they shouldn't be drinking, they shouldn't be smoking, they
Right.
shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that. You know, if your body tells you not to do something, typically you shouldn't do it. If you're having adverse effects to it, you're feeling like you're angry. I have met very few people that can even, get pissed off at the slightest of situations after smoking a joint, unless it's
Right.
about fighting over the Doritos, like like the worst side effect from smoking this, ingesting it, eating it, anything. Hey, hon, I ate the last bag of Twizzlers, like that's the worst you're going to deal with. You don't deal with, hey, congratulations, here's 6 days of constipation from smoking a joint, Like, we're not dealing with, this may cause heart murmurs, or, hey, don't smoke this or do this if you're doing that, like, hey, this
Right.
affects SSRIs, or, like, no, the worst warning label you can give to weed is, hey, it's going to make music sound better. It's going to make all the food you're eating with your friends taste that much better, and it's going to give you a lot more memories that you get to actually enjoy. Yeah.
Definitely. I listen to the police scanner a lot when I'm on the road, and you can get it on on your cell phone now for almost any city out there in different countries too. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool app. And this is a shameless, no paid plug. If you guys are interested, download the app Broadcastify. And so I was listening to it, and you speak of like you ain't gonna fight or nothing. These people were in my town here fought over the last piece of pizza, and it turned into a domestic. And I was like, whoa, this is ridiculous. Like, this is the town I live in. Like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, it's kind of just funny. That thought just popped into my head, and I was like, oh, I gotta share that because it was ridiculous. It really was. But I want to dive into one question that we ask everybody, and then I kind of will let you kind of have the floor. And anything you want to plug or share with us, you're more than welcome to. But this final question that I ask everybody is there's a rule to it, and the rule is you can't think of your answer. So you can, but you can't. So the first thing that pops in your head, I want you to blurt it out. And that being said, here we go. So, if you could smoke with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, good Lord. Freaking Robin Williams.
Oh, hell yeah.
If
Yes.
I could just even have 5 minutes with the guy to smoke a joint, he is honestly like between his stand-ups, the movies he's in, the all the work that he did with children actors and everything like that, like that guy's responsible for a lot of child labor laws in Hollywood. You know, he was making sure these kids weren't working on the set 16, 18-hour days. Like,
Wow.
you know, like you got an 8-year-old kid, like he can't be doing that, you know? Like
Right.
he was a true kind-hearted soul that he the pain that guy was going through is, you know, something I hope myself would never have to go through.
Right.
Really put yourself into his shoes in the final moments. Like you can read like the toxicology reports, you can read all the stuff about him where it's, you know, hey, this is what was going on with his brain. This was actually developing for years. You know, he just wasn't very public about it or anything like that. And like I respect that. That he wanted more of it to be about the, you know, I brought these people together with my stand up. You know, the movie I was in brought all these people together. He was just such a good dude.
I read about him. I read that he would hire every city he would film in. He would go and find the homeless, and he would hire a handful of homeless people to be stand-in background characters or anything. The guy, like in the one movie, the one guy that had the suspenders on and he looked all shaggy and all that. That guy was actually homeless. That wasn't an actor. That was a real homeless person. And I was like, wow, that's insane. You know, that's mad respect, you know, because nobody else would do that or give them even the time of day. And he looks them out and he says, hey, you know, we're going to pay you. We're going to give you food and we're going to give you an opportunity. Here you go. And definitely, you know, I,
He was a true kind-hearted man. And yeah, honestly, it wasn't even just a few homeless people. He was hiring at least 25% of the extras as homeless. And
wow.
he was taking care of them well after that. He was actually giving away his royalties to big movies just to, you know, make sure these people had something to eat and were taken care of.
Right. Yeah. And I've been homeless. You know, I was homeless when I started this show and 3 years ago. And a lot of people can't believe it, you know, and that I can relate. You know, I do a lot for the homeless that I don't talk about on here, but I do, you know, almost every day I'm giving one of them a meal, but I've gotten to know them here in town so much that I basically know who's fake and who's real, and I know where the camps are here in town. And as weird as it sounds, my one of my best friends and my first dealer, yes, my first dealer in my small town, he got addicted to meth and he got real bad and almost died. Um, when his mom died. And his mom died from cancer and stuff like that. And he was so bad that he was put on a ventilator. I mean, that's how he overdosed himself and everything. It was not good, and on other things. And when he got out, he met another guy here in from that was from Ann Arbor, and when they came to Muskegon, we've always had an opiate and a prescription drug problem and just drug problem in general here. And they wanted to open a center. So they read up on how to form a nonprofit and they formed a nonprofit and opened a sobriety and recovery center. And now they are getting backed by the city and numerous grants. And this guy was a drug dealer in high school. I mean, and look at what he's doing for the people. You just never know what somebody's going to turn into. And the plant's never been bad, you know. He even vouches for it too, and he loves my show, and he's like, you know, you're changing people's lives just like I am, and I'm like, I am, but I'm not like you, and I respect what he does, and I send a lot of the homeless people his way, and he helps them get a job, and he helps them get clothes, puts food on the table for them, and it's a great thing, you know. I love people that have hospitality and are willing to restore that into the community.
That's how it should be, man. Like, honestly, man, if more people just took the time just to, say hi, even,
Yep.
like, there's so much wrong with this world. Like, there's no reason to walk around and just carry that cloud with you. Just even smiling at a stranger can help, some make somebody's day that much better. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Even telling somebody you're proud of them, it will change their whole perspective on life. I mean, maybe not for long term, but in that moment in time, especially if somebody's feeling down and they're beating themselves up, if you tell them you're just some simple words, I'm proud of you, it'll change their whole outlook. And I know that firsthand, definitely. So with that being said, you got a business that you started up. So how we want to dive into this a little bit before we let you off the horn here. I got a roughly 20 minutes before I want to tie it up. So
Yes.
what I want to know is how you got into, what made you decide to start a business, and two, the name and the concept overall. Where did that come from?
Um, so I mean, realistically, I got into growing mushrooms. Oh God, that was roughly 2016 is when I first started experimenting with them. Um, I was going through a really bad bout of depression, and I was like, the cannabis isn't really doing it for me. I want to try something. I had read a few different articles on it. There was some celebrities at the time that were starting to talk big about it. And I was like, it's a microdose. What's going to happen? It can't be that bad. I've been smoking weed all this time, and everybody tells me weed's this big bad thing. And I'm like, I smoked 2 joints before I smoked 2 joints, like it shouldn't be that bad. And, I took a microdose, and it was definitely more than a microdose. And it kicked my ass the very first time I took it. It was like almost having that weed high again for the first time. Um, but I found that once I had lowered the amount and started doing it consistently, the microdoses for me was the final like piece to the puzzle that I needed to just be like, okay, we have the button. Everything outside of this, like, something's bothering you, button, back to happy, we're good to go. Like, you just got to roll with the punches and move on with it. Like, you need to process trauma and you need to process these things so that you can live in a healthy manner. When you keep bringing them up in your own head and replaying them over and over, well, I could have done this different or I could have done that different. You gave all that time to something that was so far in the past that's out of your control. You're completely missing everything that's in the present. I honestly feel that in the last few years of me microdosing and using fungi this way, that it is, brought me to where I wanted to be with everything. It, inspired us actually taking Uncle Mike's and, getting it on the road and, purchasing this bit, doing this business and, grabbing a building and all this equipment and, we're in almost 60 stores now across the U.S. We get,
Wow.
new stores hitting us up every week from out of state. We've got, a great group of followers between Instagram, Facebook, and just people that we've actually gotten to go out and teach at some of our classes. I mean, I think I've taught a little bit over roughly 20 classes alone just this year.
Wow.
Like we've pretty much done one almost every week since January. Just keep cranking them out and keep teaching people what they want to learn about it. Um, but like the name just came from us sitting there snowballing stuff. There's a company that we are really good friends with named Dr. Mike, and he actually is who produces our gypsum that we use in house for all of our CVG and hardwood supplemented products. But we actually have teamed up with him so that, we're able to give a better product to our customers through using his gypsum, and, a couple other fun things. But he, you know, he kind of inspired it because, he's Dr. Mike, we're Uncle Mike, he's the doctor, and we're the cool uncle that'll help get you started and get you on the right track to where you need to be. You know?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And um where can everybody find you at? If they want to connect with you and they want to try some of your products. And I'm guessing, that you probably the first, well, let me off track a little bit here before I ask you this. And that, I'm guessing outside of just the CO2 bags, you probably sell kits for inoculation and stuff like that as well.
We sell everything. We've got all of your syringes to get everything started. We have, a couple different straight grain bags like your millet, your rye. We do a 60-40 blend, but our most popular for beginners are these all-in-ones. Um,
Okay.
Basically, these are the easiest thing in the world to do. Anybody can do them. You take it home. There's a little gray patch on the front of these bags. You take 70% alcohol or higher, spray that patch down. You take your syringe, you put about half of a syringe into the bag, and you walk away for about 3 weeks. In three
Wow.
weeks, you're going to start noticing a little chunk of mycelium at the bottom here. Or if it's a really aggressive strain, it'll have already overtaken all this grain, and then you just literally break up everything inside of the bag. You don't cut it open or everything. Just shake it around, mix it, drop it on the counter a couple times to make it back into a firm block. It takes about another 14 days after that, and you'll either cut the top off a little bit to get some fresh air in, or what I like to personally do is take these and cut the entire block out and set them into a monotub. If you do
Okay.
that, it'll bloom on all five sides. So you get a much larger yield out of it. There's, much more fresh air gets to them, but in a sterile environment, so you're able to get a bigger yield out of it.
That's
They are
awesome.
they are the best with beginners. You,
That sounds like it. The
let me.
first time I seen anybody do it was Red Setter Farms. He did it on his channel. He inoculated a log I, that he got from his neighbor, and he put wooden dowel plugs and stuff in it. And I was just like, "Oh wow, this is kind of cool," because I never knew how it worked. And then I've been intrigued by it because I have sinus cluster headache syndrome, and everybody keeps telling me I should microdose, but kind of like your story, I'm so afraid to because I don't want to do too much.
Yeah. So the biggest issue I've seen with like a lot of articles on microdosing is that a lot of them say to start off at a much higher increment than I would really recommend. Like a half gram for somebody who's never even smoked weed before is going to be a very overpowering experience for that person. Um,
Right.
Granted, everybody's got different tolerances. Start small, build your way up. There is no reason to be ashamed about taking a 0.13 for, like a third of a half a gram. Like
Okay.
that is honestly my perfect dose is 0.13 to 0.16. Like I'll break up a half gram, I'll put it into three doses, and that's my incremented dose throughout the day. I'll take the first one about an hour after I wake up when I eat breakfast, and then, you know, usually I wait about 4 to 5 hours. I'll take the second one, and usually I don't even feel the need to take the third one unless I'm having like a bad day where I've been, maybe overdoing it at work, and my back's hurting, my knees are hurting. I'll take it because that pain really starts to mess with a lot of people mentally. You start feeling old, you start feeling sorry for yourself and doing this and doing that. And it's like, no, here's my little, 0.13 to the rescue. We're going to get shit done and we're going to be happy about it.
Hell yeah. I like the sounds of that. Definitely. Definitely. So where can everybody find these? That's the question we're getting back to.
So you can go onto our website at UncleMyc.com, MYC, or you can go onto our Instagram. There's a link tree on there where you can go directly to our website. There's also a link on there that takes you directly to our store locator. And you can find all the information for those stores, their phone numbers, addresses, wherever they're located, and find the closest location for you. If there's a store by you and, they don't currently carry us, you can go in there and request us and be like, hey, here's these guys, they're pretty cool or whatever. They do classes, let's do this and that. And, we'd love to, help everybody out with it.
Definitely. So your classes, are them listed on your website also where they can find them, or how would they get the information on that?
All of our classes are listed on our Instagram and Facebook. We don't have a section on our website yet for classes. It's one of those things where it's just been way easier for us to, help people and direct them using the Instagram and, all the meta platforms. But yeah, if you go onto our Instagram, we're also running a raffle on there right now where all you have to do, follow our page, and there is a post on there. There's actually 2 posts on there now where all you have to do is like the post and share the post to enter into our raffle for either a 7-pound all-in-one in a syringe or a 4-pound all-in-one in a syringe. And we're picking 5 winners out of that one.
Wow, that's impressive. Definitely. I'll have to go over there and start sharing it with our audience, because a lot of these guys are into that kind of stuff as well. A lot of these people from, like you said, the next event you're going to be at is Michigan Gyms and Genetics, guys. Make sure you check out and follow them. It's going to be in October, the Halloween party. It's on the 19th. I'd love to see some of you guys out there and put faces with the names. I'll be dressed up again this year, so you guys will have to find me, because I don't let my costume out unless you see me the day of. But it's fun, definitely, and I have a great time. And I appreciate you coming on the show and educating and just kind of bringing the light to mushrooms as a whole, because people don't know, and I honestly don't. And I feel I want to have you back in the future. I want to have you dive into, the next topic we'll dive into is actually cannabis and mushrooms and mixing them and that stuff. And I want to dive into your view on that a little bit. Maybe we'll get a panel together. I know a couple people, and maybe we'll do a show with a couple people on here and have some fun with it.
I'd love to, man. I'd love to be back with you guys. It's been a very fun time.
Definitely.
Best thing I've done with any of my Friday nights in a long time.
Yeah, I don't do a whole lot. I'm a homebody besides work, so this is kind of like going out for me. So it's great. I love it. So with that being said, I appreciate you being on the Organically Blunt show. You enjoy the rest of your evening, and everybody make sure you give him a follow and go check his products out. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks.
Appreciate you guys. Be safe.
As we close this chapter of Organically Blunt, immense gratitude to our exceptional partners who fuel our growth journey. Seedsman Genetics, the seasoned seed bank with over 2 decades of experience. Grow Bag, your trusted storage solution to protect terps. Gorilla Grow Tent, crafting spaces for cultivating dreams. Kind LEDs, illuminating your green haven. Country Roots Soil and Amendments, nurturing roots for success. Atlas Seeds, a source of pure genetic treasures. Green Wolf Genetics, creators of botanic magic. Smoke and Stork Genetics, where passion meets potency. Humboldt Seed Company, committed to cultivating excellence. Extreme Gardening, elevating your gardening game. Rain Science Grow Bags, redefining plants' homes. 420 Fast Buds, pioneers of fast and furious growth. Captain Redbeard Seeds, sailing the seas of genetic innovation. Aero Mixer, the rheumatic heartbeat of your grow. Petra Tools, your trusted garden companions. SoFem Genetics, sowing seeds of FEMS and Build-A-Soil, building the foundation of your organic oasis. Lost Close Plant Therapy, healing and enhancing plant vitality. Unlock these exclusive deals with coupon code Organically Blunt at checkout. Until our next episode, stay connected and keep growing, and as always, stay organically blunt.